South African Communist Party is using its Red October campaign this year to focus on land, food and work. The party is concerned that the cost of living is escalating globally. But why land, food and work? Let's unpack this further. We're joined by the SACP spokesperson, Dr. Alex Mashilo. Thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. Let's start off with this Red October campaign and why you are focusing on those three aspects.
Thank you very much. Presently, in terms of the statistics released by Statistics South Africa, as of the second quarter of 2022, South Africa has approximately 12.3 million unemployed active and discouraged work seekers. That comes with its own challenges and explains why we are focusing on work. However, if you don't work and you are unemployed, you do not have a source of income in South Africa because we do not have a comprehensive social security system. As to what you eat in the morning when you wake up, when others go on lunch, and in the evening, is the reason why we are focusing on food. We have about 15 million employed South Africans in a population of approximately 61 million. And because of the absence of a comprehensive social security system, it is those who are employed who look after the unemployed. That is, if they can do so. And in African communities, a single wage looks after an average of 5 family members or relatives. Meanwhile, South Africa has a vast tract of land. It has resources in the form of the water that flows in our rivers. It has mineral resources and other natural resources. But the people do not have food. Take that against the fact that South Africa is also a food producing country. But while we have these people who do not have food, we are also one of the major food exporters in the country. So this explains our focus on land, food and work. And there is a reason why we use the word work and not the word job, because pursuing what we call the inherently unequal and exploitative relationship between the capitalist employer on the one hand and the wage laborer on the other hand is not going to help South Africa to overcome the unemployment crisis. As you know, every capitalist, once established, wants to produce more output with fewer workers. And if the combination of technology, new work methods, and ways of organizing and coordinating production succeeds to increase productivity and render affected workers, the so-called redundant, capitalist bosses do retrench them. This is one of the major contributors to unemployment in South Africa. Hence, we are focusing on land, work, and food.
Yes, I think it's quite an interesting combination of all three, because without the one, there isn't another. But I want you to perhaps go into a little bit further detail when it comes to work and how you are planning to go about your campaign when it comes to work. You said you don't want to use the word jobs. And just looking at our unemployment, especially our youth unemployment in this country, there's a serious crisis when it comes to that. It seems as though there's a crisis with almost everything at this stage. But how are you going to go about your campaign when it comes to the unemployment crisis and you trying to get that message across in your October campaign?
Thank you very much. We do recognize that under the circumstances where capital dominates the productive sector of the economy, it is still necessary to pursue the creation of jobs. However, the pursuit of the creation of jobs is not going to overcome our unemployment crisis. Because as I just explained, every capitalist, once they establish their production, are making workplace restructuring in order to produce more output with fewer workers and retrench the so-called redundant workers who are human beings and cannot be, strictly speaking, in life be referred to as redundant. So what we need to do, and which is what our statement says today, is while there are these other efforts to create jobs, we simultaneously need to decommodify work, because work in terms of jobs is, if you like, the private property of the capitalist class. And the workers have to look for the capitalists to employ them. So unless we simultaneously decommodify work by creating production outside of the capital relation by means of efforts such as building cooperatives and deepening our campaign for the state to roll out public employment programs at scale, to industrialize the economy. And as you have noticed, our General Secretary Solima Paila has been leading our campaign against the Reserve Bank raising interest rates, because the high interest rates regime established and followed by the Reserve Bank and interest rates increases make the cost of capital expensive or exorbitant. And because of that, those people who have self-employment initiatives, those who want capital to invest in the creation of productive opportunities and employment or work, find this cost of capital prohibitive. And in a way, as the Reserve Bank is pursuing this high interest rate regime and increasing interest rate, it is at the same time acting against the expansion of the productive activity. So there is a combination, there is a multiplicity of strategies that we are pursuing. So, and very crucially, because there is land in the hands of some of our people in rural areas. This land is not being used because subsidies have been withdrawn when the state chose the neoliberal path. The Freedom Charter gives direction when it says the state shall assist the people with implements and seeds. This is the program we are returning to, but at the same time, we want to build a solidarity economy. With the little resources available in the hands of our people, we are embarking on mobilization in our communities to try and challenge the dominant narrative that our people must always look for work, to try and do something, to mobilize them, to do something for themselves, because there are many, many people who have looked for jobs for a long time without a breakthrough. So looking for a job for a long time without a breakthrough alone, we can see it is not a solution. This is now the time to combine looking for a job with strategies to create work ourselves.
Mr. Mashilo, I want to ask you about your previous campaigns and whether or not they have yielded the results that you were seeking. And I ask this in context of whether or not you think this specific campaign that you are embarking on is going to yield the same kind of results that you want, or the results that you actually want. And I ask this in the context of we've had issues of land, of food, of work, of an energy crisis for many years. These problems aren't new, and I'm wondering if you think your campaigns are actually worth it and actually put any pressure on the powers that be to deal with these issues.
Thank you very much for the beautiful question. Our campaigns take place in a society where changes are determined by the balance of forces. There are campaigns that made a difference, like our well-known financial sector campaign, which we introduced through the Red October campaign as well. You would know that had it not been of the Red October campaign introducing the financial sector transformation campaign, South Africa would not have established the National Credit Regulator. It would not have adopted the National Credit Act. It would have been severely affected, like other countries that were affected by the global economic crisis of 2008, which started in the financial sector in the so-called subprime lending market in the United States, and an infectious disease or like a communicable disease spread to affect other sectors and brought production down. South Africa was relatively spared compared to the worst affected countries that we saw going to the exploiters such as the IMF. Like, look at what happened in Greece. That did not happen in countries such as South Africa. That was because of the South African Communist Party's financial sector campaign. We know that following that crisis, there were further changes in the financial system with the transformation of the National Credit Authority into the Financial Conduct Authority and further strengthening of the laws. Insofar as those are concerned, yes, we can say the Red October campaign did make a contribution not only to the SACP members, but to the country in its entirety. There are campaigns that we established and put forward, such as the National Health Insurance Campaign. It is that campaign that brought about the proposal for South Africa to establish the National Health Insurance. And as you know, the government took that seriously, although after a period of struggle. Now everybody in South Africa can recognize the importance of advancing the National Health Insurance. We talk about the social relief of distress grant, which was fought for by the SACP through the campaigns to bring about relief and amidst. So there have been successes, but some of the campaigns did not achieve their objectives in totality. For example, while the financial sector campaign has made important gains, such as making sure that the people who were unbanked and denied access to banking services were banked through facilities such as the Mzansi account. And of course, technology did come in and also introduce further changes. But the financial sector, look at the banking sector in South Africa, it is still under the monopoly of the commercial banks, about 4 or 5 or so. Now, we are pushing through this campaign for the transformation of the financial sector structurally to support productive activities. Sure. And that will happen as we also campaign to diversify the financial sector.
Okay, great. I want to move over to another issue. Alex, about the fact that it seems as though the tripartite stance on reports of COSATU breaking away from the ANC. And I link it to the question of what happened at the COSATU Congress in the week, where the ANC's Gwede Mantashe was unable to basically engage at the COSATU Congress because they did not want him to speak. They basically asked him to leave. There was a lot of anger that came out of that. And it's possibly because of the performance of the ANC not dealing possibly with the energy crisis, with job creation, and a number of other issues. And I wonder what your stance is of that, and seeing how COSATU is now basically saying if the ANC doesn't pull up their socks, they are going to possibly move away from the ANC. What is your stance on that?
If truth be told, the working class in major centers of economy, or sections of the working class in major sectors of our economy, have moved away from the ANC already. In the past, the ANC was able to secure over 50% of the vote in cities such as Tshwane, Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, Cape Town, eThekwini, Nelson Mandela Metro. These are metropolitan cities where industry is concentrated. And when you talk about metropolitan cities where industry is concentrated, in Marxist terms, you are talking about cities where the proletariat or industrial workers are concentrated. So the ANC could not achieve 50% or more in its electoral performance in cities where the working class is concentrated. If you look at South Africa's production geography, there is no industry in rural areas. In areas such as Limpopo, you are beginning to see growth in mining. In the Northwest, we have been having mining. And in the Northern Cape, we've also been having mining. There are agricultural activities in a number of provinces. But if you talk about industries such as manufacturing, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, particularly the Nelson Mandela Metro and the Guha area, are quite dominant. And that is where the ANC was unable to achieve 50% of more or more in its electoral performance. So that's where we need to start. If we think that these decisions are about the workers deciding that in future they will move away from the ANC, then we are outdated, because we will not be recognizing the movement that has already taken place. This week or last week, the ANC, through cooperation with other parties, managed to make changes in the city of Johannesburg. As that happened, a week before then, the Democratic Alliance, working together with other parties, also took over the metro, the Nelson Mandela Metro. So there are those particular dynamics. What has to happen is for the ANC to ask this question: why are these things happening? Why is this the situation? Is the working class moving away from the ANC, or has the ANC-led government implemented the policies that repel the working class away from the African National Congress? That is the question we need to deal with. Let me take a point you did not mention. In 2018, the ANC-led government entered into a collective bargaining agreement with public service unions on behalf of public service workers. Indeed, the government complied and upheld the agreement in the first year, be 2018, in 2019. In the third year, when COVID-19 was striking very hard like a lightning, the ANC-led government pulled out of that agreement and said that the agreement was illegal. We know that the IMF had released statements earlier on calling on the government to curtail wages. As a result, there were no wage increases for the workers, and those workers are angry. So in conversations like these ones that are so short, we are unable perhaps except to point to the historical facts to say, hey, let us not focus only on what happens on the surface. Let us go deeper. The workers may have said the ANC must not speak, but let us look at that historically. Where does that come from? Are the workers reasonable or unreasonable? Yes.
Okay, great. Those are very interesting insights. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the best on your Red October campaign. That was SACP spokesperson Alex Mashilo.